Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today because I had the privilege of seeing the movie The Privilege. I hate to say the joke. So, going to this film, I immediately feel like if you kind of pull away the main idea of this movie, I'm like, you know what? You could probably have a really good movie here. You can have a really good build up and possibly have it to where, like, these kids are to see that this drug is going on and making them more and more to see all these horrific things, but they just can't stop taking it. Like that could have been the whole movie right then and there. That could have been the whole story. That could have been it. But no, they just kept compiling things and like we get to where like there's a cult, there's a we find out people are who they think that they are, and we go further and we have to go on and find out that there is some fungus that is to have been uh, pulled out of corpses and all this jazz, and I'm like, wow, like there's a lot going on here. And didn't need to know the origin of where exactly these medications are coming from. Cause we like at first we just think that it's like, oh, it's a ghost story. Okay, I'm sold. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, that's not a ghost, that's a demon. I'm like, huh? How can you tell the difference between ghost and demon? But okay, whatever you guys want to say. But then we go like further into like so many different directions, um, and we so yeah. So this movie has potential. It has potential to eventually at some point have somebody steal the main idea from this movie and to make a film out of it, or to have it just plop down in some show somewhere and people be like, wow, this episode or this thing is so cool. Because I think the whole you going on and taking some drug and hallucinating that a supernatural event is happening, that could honestly be a really amazing idea. That eventually could go on into a movie where you're thinking that it's some supernatural film, but no, it's just a drug film. And then somebody had gotten, of course, the wrong kind of medication. That like we could have it to where there's so many like discontinued drugs that accidentally get to be like sold on the market for whatever reason, and we find out that like this medicate, like we could have had it be that we could have had the story of all of that in this movie, and I would have been sold. I'm like, take my money, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, so this movie like wasn't a bad film. Like I would just say that there's like this movie had a lot of potential, but it continued to ruin itself by feeling like it was also desperately trying to fit some portfolio of somebody who was like, hey man, like, but I want to write this too, and I want to get this in here, and I want to just have this little. I'm like, why? Why complicate the film? Um, but yeah, so like this movie also towards the end of it has that like Michael Jackson Thriller ending to it, where of course if you know the end of the Michael Jackson Thriller video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you don't, maybe you need to go and see that Michael Jackson Thriller video, or probably by the end of this movie you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah. So really, the concept is basically what I was to say here. So, so furthermore, yeah, like I feel like I've teed this up. I feel like I've gotten people to like, ooh, this might sound interesting, or ooh, I still don't know what he's talking about. Like, cause, like the preview of it just looks like a ghost movie, and so it's not quite all that in a bag of chips, so to speak. So the teeing up portion of it is we have a group of people who are all to be taken, or who are all to be given these certain number of drugs. Certain number of drugs who are to have us realize that these people are seeing real spirits. Because we find out that there is this drug laced with this fungi that I guess is to only be from dead corpses. So we all of a sudden have demonic fungi that are placed into these pills that these certain people are to consume for reasons. And eventually we'll have and here's the honest thing. I probably may not remember every cast list member because also IMDb, the cast list, garbage. So I'm gonna have to try as best as I can to kind of when we get to certain events of this film, I'm gonna have to try to do my best to kind of retell them with this Garbo cast list from IMDb. Thanks a lot, IMDb. Man, sometimes they have like every minute detail and I'm like, whoa, but then sometimes it's just like, blah. But I get it. Like, there's some movies that just arrive, and heaven forbid they actually. There's so much that they have to update. There's so much that they have to change. There's so much stuff that they probably see as much more important than other things. And there's only so many people that have to control that site at one time. So give them a break. They're doing the best they can. Plus, also, it's probably not even IMDb doing it. It's probably like, hey, the movie has to kind of pitch in itself and to say like, oh yeah, like I'm going to try and get credit for being on IMDb and whatever. So who knows with IMDb? Let me know in the comments below if you're a movie and you're a person that did a film and you know all about the IMDb's. So with that said, let's go on. Let's just go into that double 5 time territory. Let's just go into this thing called spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this movie. So the very beginning of this film, we of course have a young Finn who is at home with his sister Annie. And so Finn is going on and is kind of playing video games like a normal kid would do. And so all of a sudden Annie is starting to have some like weird sounds coming from her room. If we were to hear some kind of humming going on, like I don't think we should go in that room. But it seems a little bit different than humming, so to speak. Archive 81 just humming it out, but a different kind of humming, if you know what I mean. Because this girl is like, oh no. So Finn is to go on into Annie's room trying to figure out what the is going on. And so both Annie and Finn are running off. Because I guess both of their parents are going on a date night or they're just gone for whatever reason. So both Finn and both Annie are running off together to make it to this bridge. Which will kind of consistently see this bridge like being used for this movie for whatever reason. So like, man, these guys just love this bridge for this film. No offense, because how many locations can you really do in a film? And probably there's some stuff where it's like, hey, we can just kind of get away with doing this. So we have it where, of course, Annie and Finn, we have Annie who's like has lost her freaking mind at this point, I guess. And she is deciding to just like, well, hey, like if we can just go and just jump over this balcony or jump over this kind of this little fence of this bridge, and if we just stay right here we'll be fine. And Finn is like, okay, this sounds weird, as they have driven to this bridge and now Annie is almost like, it looks like she's just going to jump off this bridge thing. And Finn is like, are you okay, Annie? So Finn starts going on and doing what Annie is to say because she's his older sister. So Finn all of a sudden is starting to hang on to this little like fence that's on this bridge. And so all of a sudden Annie is starting to like push Finn off. And so like Annie starts falling off of this bridge and she's like dragging Finn with her, and Finn just like boots her in the face, just like, no, like, I'm not gonna die. And so then Annie just falls from off the bridge. She's like, ah, I'm dead. And she dies. And so now we have it where like all the ambulances and everybody arrive. They're kind of comforting Finn as he is basically just like, what the just happened? Because like Finn was going on and seeing some like smoked demon of sorts, but he didn't know what that was. Like he wasn't like what was she like just smoking some weed in there and some weird weeds? Something happened there. I don't know. So we have it where now we like have some time passing and we have a much older Finn. I'm like, wait a minute, like whatever happened to Annie? They just like fast track through that. They just cold case it up and it's just like, well, yeah, Annie just lost her mind. They just wrote her off as that. Okay, like I guess it just became a cold case. I guess or just like, oh yeah, Finn killed her. So they never like figured out that case. I don't get it. So like shouldn't Finn be in like some mental hospital somewhere? Just kind of like, yeah, like I think he killed his, I think he killed his sister. Yeah, I think that's what happened. Because whatever evidence do they have? Like he booted her off, so kill her? Because there is no other evidence. But like I guess like we could just write it off as like it was an accidental death because Annie just lost her mind. So, and Finn was just like in a fear of his life and going on and doing what Annie was saying because, like, uh, like Finn thought that Annie was at a rational mind at that point. So Finn is going on and talking to this doctor, who of course to be Doctor uh, Sneaky or Snikey. She's a weird, goofy name. So we have Dr. Steinke, who, of course, is to give Finn this yellow medication, this new medication. He's going on and thinking like, well, yeah, I should probably go on and take this. Yeah, might as well. So all of a sudden, Finn is going on and taking his medication, and he's going to this pool party with all of his friends, and he's going on to this pool party, and he's starting to obviously hallucinate because we'll find out later that this isn't Finn's fault, it's the drug's fault. So we have Finn starting to hallucinate, and he's starting to see that he has a knife in his hand with blood, and that all of a sudden everyone in this pool is to have blood all over them. And we have both Lena and we have Samira who are kind of making out together. That's what kind of Finn sees in his mind, oddly. So, because we had Finn going on, and I guess his best friend is Lena, who is to be this purple haired girl, or Lena. Not quite sure how it was pronounced in the film. And so we, of course, have it where Finn has his eyes on Samira. And so Lena goes and takes Finn's phone and is to text her saying, like, hey, do you want to go to the party tonight? And she texts back saying, see you later. And so he's like, ooh, so you text that, like, thinking that, like, that was me? And she's like, well, yeah. So, like, hey, don't say I never did anything for you. So, you would, like, so what, it, like, did Finn always have her number? Or, like, because it seems like she, like, immediately knew who this was. There wasn't like, hey, this is Finn, blah, blah. Do you want to go out tonight at this party? Like, I don't know, maybe it could have, but it is what it is. Maybe everybody in this classroom just had everybody's number just because it's the convenient, like, hey, yeah, I really need help with studies, blah, blah. Maybe it could be that. I don't know. So, So yeah, so Finn goes to this party, is hallucinating like a motherfucker, and so he's not really understanding like why this medication is making him worse, not better. So we go on at some point and have Finn start looking at this medication, and he's starting to realize that there's something really weird inside of it. So he cuts it open and is to pull this thing out. And then he goes on and is to put this in some jar and is to go on and have his science teacher inspect it. And so his science teacher is like, well, yeah, this is like a weird fungus thing that like doesn't make sense for me for you to have this. So we of course have this scientific teacher that is to go on and take his students or take her students to this one other like shaman supernatural person uh, who of course isn't named in IMDb, even though she's kind of a key person to the story. Um, but anyways, we also have it where at one point Finn, before they go on and meet with this kind of woman that is to know who is to be kind of like the poltergeist whisperer with it's a mother and son duo where the son is to be this guy who knows about white noise, and if you've ever seen the Michael Keaton movie, like that has the ability through radio sequences to talk to ghosts and stuff like that. Um, like there's a whole movie about that. So, but let's back up a little bit. So, Finn at one point late at night is going and walking through his house and is to all of a sudden see that his other sister, Sophie, is in this room with some old granny and the rest of their family. And Finn is like, okay, what's going on here? So we have it where Sophie is to start to uh, kind of take a little off, so supposedly, and then all of a sudden this grandmother is to start taking some off. I'm like, okay, and so all of a sudden it seems like this grandmother is getting closer and closer to Sophie, and then like we don't see what actually happens. Finn just kind of like wakes up, and like now he's like, okay, what the heck happened last night? And nobody really has answers for him. We kind of have Finn kind of watching over Sophie closely, and it seems like Sophie is to at school start to get sick, to where all of a sudden she's going on and doing this rope, and her nose starts to bleed and she starts to fall off this rope. And it's like, what the is going on? To where all of a sudden we have like Sophie's boyfriend that's kind of getting really like weirded out by all this. To where all of a sudden it seems that Sophie's boyfriend, who I think is Rami, is to have some kind of answer here. And supposedly he was going to meet up with Finn at some diner, but when Finn was to try to make it to this diner, all of a sudden, I believe for me, and I could be wrong about that, was to be taken to this car wash where he goes on and he is being strangled by some woman who we find out is actually working for some, later on in the film we find out that she's working for some drug company trying to keep all this quiet, because she too probably has a little demon inside of her at some point. So and that's where I was just like, eh? And so we have Finn, who is to find this body, and so the detective is to go on and he is to have this camera for this diner, and so the detective is making this conclusion. It's like, well, via all the people that are showed up around the time that this guy was to die, here is this one guy. Here is the other woman that wouldn't make sense for her to go and kill this guy, and then there's you, Finn. Because conveniently the car wash doesn't have any cameras anywhere. And so they're just kind of like, well, whoever was to be coming into this diner has to be the murderer. And so Finn is like, really? You're going to pin this all on me? Like, why would Finn turn this body in? Why would he go on and say, hey, this guy is dead? Why would he report this to... like, yeah, I just desperately want to turn around and say that I'm the murderer, even though I'm not. Like, he was, like, I get it. Like, there might be some kind of suspicion or some kind of motive, but, like, there probably won't be any fingerprints of Finn's anywhere around to make it convincing enough that Finn is to be the real murderer here. So we don't have this detective investigate this murder any further. Any furtherer? That's further. That's an English word. So we go on and we have consistently Finn who's talking to Sophia, or Sophie, and so it just feels like more and more like, okay, this is going nowhere. So Finn goes on and is to like look at these medications, and then he goes to a scientist teacher, and then he goes on to, I believe her name is starts with an E. I think it's like Aleski or something like that. Something close to that. So this woman who Finn is to go to, who he brings Lena along with him, we have them going on and like, okay, well, let's go into your house and we'll kind of channel the spirit and let's see if we can talk to it, yada yada yada. So they're like, okay, this is cool. So we had at one point where Finn was talking to Samira and kind of wanting them to get together to see if like he can go on and just kind of like do a study date or something like that, just to kind of win this girl over. So all of a sudden we have Finn who is to now have this mother son group coming in to kind of spiritually think if they can get the they're trying to channel the spirit at the wrong time, because Samira's like, well, hey, like, Finn, like, I thought that like you and me, like, I thought we were gonna have a study night. And Finn is like, oh my god, I completely forgot. Of course, we have Finn's parents that are leaving yet again to do some other kind of thing, some other date night or something or other. So we have Lena that comes in and is to have both Finn, Samira, and her all like, yeah, like, let's get Ghost Hunter ready and let's watch this show. So we all of a sudden have the one woman who's like, okay, like, whatever you do, don't look exactly into this ghostly spirit thing, this demon. Don't look directly into it. So it's kind of like the Raiders of the Lost Ark thing. Don't look directly into it or your face will melt off. So we go on and we have this woman like channeling it, and her son is trying to pick this up via like the white noise, and it seems that he finally is to get something. And so all of a sudden this ghost is trying to like smush this woman's kind of face, just kind of like claw into it and like scratch into it, like, yeah, like he doesn't kill her, but it like weirdly he's like touching all over her face and just scraping her face, and just He's like, yeah, like there's nothing you're gonna do. Like, and then all of a sudden the demon disappears when, of course, Finn's parents are alive. Are alive. When Finn's parents are arriving back at the house and just like, hey Finn, what are you doing here? What's going on? And so all of a sudden that breaks up the channel spirit guide freaking mission going on here. So Finn like doesn't really explain what's going on, but like I think the parents are probably starting to figure it out anyways. So after that kind of moment, Finn is just like, you know what? Like I am just so like I'm so done with this family. Like they just don't want to like get to any answers like I do. Yada yada yada. So Finn runs off with his two friends that are girls, and so they all go on together. I guess nobody is to kind of question that this is a school night or nothing, and so all three of these people all head to this pool because this movie has a very limited like location of things to do. Which, hey, I'm not flacking it for that. Like I'm just saying that uh, like I guess like there's some interesting things that they're trying to do within these limited locations, and I applaud them for that. So that they're like really trying to get the good use out of any number of these locations. Again, not flacking them for that. So we go in and have these three characters, and they're all sleeping in this pool, and so all of a sudden Samira is like, "Well, hey, like this could be like the end of the world. Like, what should we do next?" And Finn is like, I have an idea. So all of a sudden, one person is kissing one person, then all of a sudden, they're waking Lena up, and then all of a sudden, uh, like we're having a wild things freaking scene going on in this movie where there's like a free for all, let's just say, going on. Can't really see much, but it is what it is, anyways. So we transition on having all these people having a secret. Like, yeah. So we of course have Finn, who is have found out that supposedly these fungi were or fungus were to have come from dead corpses. And so we find out later that Finn is going to find out where this drug company is coming from that's making this stuff. And they're just going to find out like just a bunch of corpses that are just rotting away that they're just kind of pulling from. And just like these hazmated guys' suits are just kind of pulling from this stuff. And they're like, yeah, let's go on and make more drugs. Yeah. For whatever goofy reason. I don't get what the end goal is here, but I guess we just have a lot of like I want to know like the origin how like this all came about. Like we just had I guess a bunch of people that are all just like, "Hey, let's be all cult members and let's try to figure out how we can get some demons inside people." Yeah. There had to have been the first person that was to not be a demon well, if you technically think about it, if you go and find a demonic fungus, then yeah, you probably had the very first person that was to figure this out all of a sudden become a demon themselves and like, hey, yeah, let's go on. And so somebody weirdly had to have been like experimenting on like a rotting dead corpse and finding this whole thing out. And so yeah, like I guess that's the thing there. But anyways, so we have Finn, Lena, and Samira who are going to school, and we have a kid here who is to start having breathing problems. And so Finn is just at his gym class and he gets a call from his mom. And so Finn is asking for Sophie, and Finn's mother saying like, "Oh, she's okay. She's just kind of sleeping." So we find out that Finn's mother has this kind of like certain kind of uh, like thing on her that the one woman was to tell Finn. It's like, well, hey, if you see this symbol on anybody, that means that they're probably possessed, or that they probably have some demon inside of them. So kind of look out for that. So we have Finn that's going to his gym class, and all of a sudden he's seeing a guy named Leander that is having trouble breathing, and he's trying to barf something out in the sink, but it just won't come out. So Finn is like kind of smacking him, like, "Hey man, like, are you okay?" And Leander just kind of like runs off with like, "Hey, get away from me, Finn." It's like, "Hey, I was just trying to be friendly. I was just trying to help you out." So all of a sudden they go through and they finish up their school day. And so weirdly, Leander is now at the roof of the school. I don't know how he got up there, but I guess like different rules for schools, I guess. So maybe a very unsecure school. Not quite sure. I'm not questioning the school's way of doing things. It's just a movie where I'm like, I was just kind of waiting for there to be some kind of weird omen moment where we have Leander that's like, "Finn, I'm doing this for you." Like I was just waiting for that because I was like, this is so weird. Like, why is this guy just standing up there? And then so all of a sudden we start to see this guy has a knife and he's putting a knife in his mouth. I'm like, oh my god, this is awful. This is like some Joker moment. And so all of a sudden this guy starts like putting this knife in his mouth, and he then goes on and just falls forward with the knife out of his mouth, of course, but he just falls forward. People are like, "Oh my god." So the all of a sudden the ambulance is coming on. The ambulance is coming on. It's arriving. The paramedics are going and getting this guy, and it seems like this guy's still alive. Somehow, or no, was he alive? Maybe he was dead. He's probably dead. Maybe he was alive dead. Maybe he was half alive, half dead. Maybe he was a zombie. Maybe. Let's just say he's dead because he probably didn't survive that fall. But his eyes were open. And so we have this, because I didn't understand why this guy, after the fact, was opening this guy's mouth to pull this thing out of there, and then it was the fungus thing. Because Finn went with this kid, with I think one of the girls, and was seeing that thing being pulled out. It was like, oh my god. Because that kid was kind of yakking up some of that yellow like Finn had done before. And so, like, we really can verify that they took the same medication. I think that might have been Samira, because I think we had Lena that was to go and take Leander's medication and was trying to figure out the location of that medication from the box, because it's the same exact thing. So we go and have Lena that goes to this facility in this kind of pull like an Amazing Spider-Man kind of moment where she just goes and grabs one of these badges that aren't actually hers to go into this company, and she ends up finding out that they are to have this drug called Thiaxipam or Thiaxipam, something like that, some goofy name like that. Thiaxipam, like you'll see demons in no time. Thiaxipam. You're probably gonna have this be the worst drug you've ever taken. Thiaxipam. This drug has more side effects than anything else. Thiaxipam. And so we go in and find out that Finn's dad is actually a part of this company, and it's like, oh, that's full circle. And so we also go on and have Finn, who is to eventually go on and get these files and files about him and Samira and so on and so forth, and they all find out that they're actually all adopted. Okay. So, all of a sudden we have Leander's father that is to kind of run in there and is to like, oh, is my son okay? Is my, huh? And so all of a sudden Leander's dad is going and meeting with Finn and saying it's like, well, we're the privileged, Flynn. We're the privileged. And I'm just like, what is going on in this movie? All right, this is weird. So this all pushes us on to, in a part of this film, have us have Finn's parents and a number of other cult members that are going and tying up Samira and putting Finn in this certain medical chair that becomes table, because Finn at one point was going on and talking to his grandfather, and so his grandfather was going on and talking about that he used to be a priest and that he's seen certain demons that have kind of feasted on people, and this demon won't feast on his grandfather anymore, and supposedly we are thinking that this grandfather is dead and that like we won't see him anymore. Well, we go on and find out that Finn is to have his grandfather have a demon inside of him, and so Finn is going to usher in his grandfather's demon. So we all of a sudden have this grandfather that is like shoving this demon through, of course, Finn's mouth. And here's one thing that I can recommend for people, because like it seems that now I can weirdly recommend something. There is this Robert Kirkman show called Outcast, and if you like possession like movies like this kind of is, go ahead and check out Outcast. If you guys remember the guy who created Invincible and The Walking Dead, same guy who's to do the show Outcast. It's probably a very like aggressive show, especially the pilot. I watched the pilot. I'm like, man, this show was freaking dark, but like there was something about it that feels somewhat similar to this in the whole like demon possession thing that they go with. So if you like stuff like this, you could probably like the show Outcast. Just recommending that. Because I watched the pilot, but I eventually wanted to watch more, but nobody was really interested. So it was just like, oh, that sucks. Because, I don't know, I thought the show was cool. But anyways, that is what it is. So, not trying to, like, promote, like, oh, go and check out that Desperate Please, oh, whatever. Just check out Outcast. If you can find it, it's probably, I don't remember what app it was on. You can probably go and check that review just to see what app it was on and just like, man, because I'll probably suggest something else for you to do anyways. You can probably see if it's on Amazon somewhere too. You could easily figure that out. So anyways, Finn is just ushering in his grandfather's demon, and what ends up happening is Lena ends up rescuing him by having a gas mask on and gassing up a bunch of of Finn's family and just torching it up. And so Finn's house had some secret door that was to lead to this like underground thing, and I'm like, dude, I just seen like Archive 81, and it had the exact same thing in it. But it was kind of funny how that one like shaman woman that was saying like, hey, like, is there something beyond this door? And Finn is like, no. It's like, well, there's something really wrong then, because she found out there was some secret door, and like Finn didn't realize it. Interesting. So Elena or Lena or Lena is to rescue Finn, and so both of them are just to flame up this house and try to get the heck out of there. All of a sudden, we have Sophie who's trying to stop Finn, like Finn, what are you doing? And so they decide just freaking run her over, run her down. So they run over Sophie, and so they just go onto this bridge because they only make it as far as the bridge. Because all of a sudden there's to be another demon that is to try to make its way into any number of any of these characters. And so, of course, we have Finn telling them, don't breathe it in, don't breathe it in, or otherwise he'll get inside of your life. So, maybe Lena should have kept that gas mask on for whatever reason. So, they go on and they crash into one of the fence part of this bridge. And, like, the car is kind of wobbling up and down. Luckily, they get everybody out of the car, and so then the car falls to its horrible death. R.I.P. car. R.I.P. As Lena is mentioning, yeah, I really love that car. I wonder if that is one of those cars where it's like one of those where it's like they got it for like as cheaply as they could possibly get it. But it's kind of cool how they had to put all like, I wonder if like the stars in the car were already there or if they just kind of like put that on there. Or I wonder if they like repainted the car. Because I'm just kind of curious if it was already there or they had to like seriously do some work on that car. It's kind of what I'm fascinated by, weirdly. So all of a sudden they see this big fat like billboard for this drug, and they're like, "Get demonized today." They didn't say that, but they might as well should have. So we go on and we have these three realize that there's a possibility that no one can get trusted at this point. It's probably going to be like the body snatchers at some point where everybody's going to be like, "Arr!" And everybody's going to be the alien or the demon or the whatever. So as we have these three walk off realizing that they're on their own, all of a sudden we have Samira who just kind of is to be walking, and then she kind of turns back to the camera as the camera is behind them, and she's like, with her white eyes, and it's like, oh, she's demonized too. Oh, like, so we have the Michael Jackson Thriller end of this movie. So I don't know how this is going to lead to some kind of sequel, but I guess it's going to lead to something. So let me know in the comments below how you felt about The Privilege, especially if you took this whole time to watch this whole thing, which I greatly appreciate. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this movie, because you might have felt like, it's like, well, no, I thought this was a good film. I don't know what you're talking about, because I know there's a lot of people that have that too. There's a lot of people they'll go on and say, like, yeah, this movie sucked, and I don't even know what you're talking about. Because people have polar opposite opinions about every little thing, and it's okay. Like, I don't want to nitpick about anybody, because people can say that this movie sucked, and everything about it sucked, or they loved it, and I could just be kind of like, there is some potential. There's some potential. That's what I could really just say. So anyways, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.